Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1207B, and today's date is February 17th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Elite Push Their Agenda to Censor Those Individuals Who Are Not With Them. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, yesterday, Trump had a press conference, and he was talking to many different reporters, and we know that he said the economy is a mess, the Middle East is a mess, and we've been following and tracking all of this for quite a while, and we know it is a complete mess. We know what their plans were from the beginning. We've been looking at everything and calling them out on it. And Jim Acosta was talking to Trump during this press conference, and he said, "Aren't you concerned, sir, that you're undermining the people's faith in the First Amendment, freedom of the press in this country when you call stories you don't like fake news? Why not just say it's a story I don't like?" He added, "When you call it fake news, you're undermining confidence in our news media. Isn't that important?" Now, first of all, Trump didn't invent the term fake news. The elite, the deep state, through the corporate media came out and said, listen, it's because of these sites that are spewing fake news. That is why Trump won the election. But we know for a fact that there was a study done that fake news had nothing to do with winning the election. And we have to separate fake news from the alternative media because they're combining all of it together. Fake news are those sites that duplicate like ABC News, NBC News, and they use a different domain name very close to it, and they have different stories on there. The alternative media, well, they're looking at different facts and trying to get the word out. And we have to remember, the news media, by not reporting, by taking the information and twisting it, they have created their own problems. This is why the people are not confident in the corporate media anymore. This is why they look at MSNBC, this is why they look at CNN and call it fake, because they're really not telling the true story. Now, think about it. When Trump was telling the media that the economy is a mess, that the Middle East is a mess, don't you think the corporate media at that point in time should have said, well, wait a minute, excuse me, what do you mean by the economy is a mess? What do you mean by the Middle East is a mess? And that should have been the news story at the time. But we can see right now, they're not interested in that. They're interested in going after Trump. Now, I'm not really for Trump. I'm not for anyone, actually. If we have an individual in office that works for the people, does what he promises, or she, and they do the things that benefit the people, that is what we need in government. When we have congressmen, congresswomen, and others in government that are there to make themselves wealthier, to make deals with corporations, central banks, and others, well, we don't need them. That's not the purpose of government. It's to serve the people. And we can see right now that the corporate media, they're continually distorting facts. And when we look, we see there's a headline. White House plans for 100,000 troops to round up immigrants. Now, it sounds like a very scary headline. And we can see right now, this is in many of the corporate media news stations and websites where they're pushing this out there. And they're saying this is coming from a leaked memo, and we have the evidence here. Now remember, this is a draft. And if you think back, what other president do you remember where they continually leaked executive orders or drafts of executive orders? Not many. Now remember, this is one of many, many, many drafts. But they're out there trying to convince everyone that, this is going to be very scary. 100,000 National Guard going to be roaming the country looking for immigrants. That's what they're trying to do. But when you actually look at the draft, and remember, it is a draft, it hasn't been signed, it doesn't mean this is what it's going to be, just like they told us about the draft when it was leaked about the safe zones. Now, the first problem is that there's a leaking problem in the White House. And I don't mean pipes leaking. I mean, there are individuals in there that are setting this president up. And when you read what this says, it says nothing about 100,000 National Guard. And it says the following: expansion of the 287G program to include state guard units in the border region. Section 287G of the Immigration and Nationality Act authorized me to enter into an agreement with a state or political subdivision thereof for the purpose of authorizing qualified officers or employees of the state or subdivision to perform the functions of an immigration officer. This grant of authority, known as the 287G program, has been highly successful force multiplier that authorizes state or local law enforcement personnel to perform all law enforcement functions specified in Section 287A of the INA, including the authority to investigate, identify, apprehend, and arrest individuals. And it goes on to say that pursuant to Title 32, the United States Code, state National Guard components are employees of their respective states and under the command of their governors when they are not in federal service. Based on their training and expertise, these men and women are particularly well suited to assist in the enforcement of the federal immigration law and augment border security operations by department components. And he went on to say in this draft, to maximize participation by state and local jurisdictions in the enforcement of federal immigration law, I am directing the Director of ICE to engage with all willing and qualified law enforcement jurisdictions for the purpose of entering into agreement under Section 287G of the INA. Additionally, I am directing the Commissioner of CBP and the Director of ICE to immediately engage with governors of the states adjacent to the land border with Mexico and those states adjoining such border states for the purpose of entering into an agreement under Section 287G of the INA to authorize qualified members of the state National Guard while such members are not in federal service, or qualified members of a state militia or state defense force under the command of the governor to perform the function of an immigration officer in relation to the investigation, apprehension, and detention of aliens in the United States. And there's nowhere in here that it says he's putting together 100,000 National Guard force to go after anyone. He's asking the governors of the states to help out. Now, again, this is a draft. Most likely, this is not even going to be signed, because remember that executive order with the safe zones? When the corporate media was out there and they were saying that, oh my God, he's going to create safe zones. Well, that never happened. Most of these things are out there. There's many bills, there's many drafts, and by leaking this, it looks like they're just trying to distort the facts and create this instance of ridiculousness to the public. And it looks like this is all they're doing, instead of waiting for the actual executive order that is signed. Instead, they're just picking and choosing which drafts they want, and then they add a number to it to make it seem scary. But there's no number listed, and it's just a draft. There's hundreds of drafts. They're looking at all different options, not just Trump, but all the presidents. And actually, in the past, presidents have used the National Guard to round up illegal aliens. Remember, they're illegal aliens. They entered the country illegally. So, law enforcement, National Guard, they can be used to find these individuals. Now, Twitter, they're creating a new tool to crack down on politically incorrect language. So if you say words like retard or anything like that, it looks like what they're going to do is they're going to punish bad behavior, temporarily limiting their account, because they're trying to control what people say. They want people speaking in the way they want them to speak, and if there's something they don't like, they're just going to throttle your account. They're going to limit what you can do. And there are users out there that are getting hit with this. We also see Facebook. They're creating an algorithm which will identify political dissenters. Now also, this algorithm will find terrorism, violence, bullying, and they're going to be using artificial intelligence to help with this. And we can see what is happening right now. They're searching out and looking for certain things, and they're going to censor certain individuals. Now, we knew this was coming for a very long time. We know that Google does it. We know that YouTube does it. We know that Facebook, Twitter, the rest are all doing it because, again, the central bankers, they want control of three things. They want control of currency, they want control of the government, and they want the control of the flow of information. And having the internet, social media, the alternative media, they don't have control over this. This is why they started the campaign with fake news, because they realized that people are starting to listen to others and not the corporate media. People are starting to realize the corporate media, well, they're not reporting on what's really going on out there. Instead, they're reporting on maybe Kim Kardashian or something else, while something else important is happening maybe in the Middle East. And we can see that they need to control the flow of information, and this is why they're pushing so hard. Now, Germany, they've issued a stark warning to Trump to stop threatening the EU and favoring Russia. And we can see right now, Pentagon's new chief, Jim Mattis, appeared before a full conference room in Brussels, and he issued an ultimatum to NATO to boost spending or risk a cut in U.S. support. Now, Germany's defense minister, well, she fired back and said that Washington, well, it's going against European cohesion, abandoning the core Western values, and seeking a rapprochement with Russia behind the backs of its allies. And we can see right now, things are really out of whack at this point. And you know what's funny? When Trump came into the presidency, we can see that he's taking a different approach. Is it the best approach? Maybe, maybe not. But it's not going along with the status quo. And we can see once he moves in a different direction, you can see the real agenda of the elite, the deep state around the world, not just here in the United States, but you can see it because they just come out and they actually say like, hey, wait a minute. You can't do this. You're not allowed to make peace with Russia. You're not allowed to talk to Putin. And you can see right now that this has been their agenda all along, to try to push us into some type of war. And we can see the players are always the same. It's China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria. And we can see already that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, well, he's pledging the whole of the U.S. military, including its massive nuclear arsenal, to the defense of Japan and South Korea. Tillerson issued a statement following the meeting, insisting that the U.S. remained steadfast in its defense commitments, and that the full range of both its conventional and nuclear arsenals are available to the two Pacific nations. Now, this is not the first time this has happened. Obama has also pledged the same exact thing, and we can see there are certain things in the Trump administration where they're going along with the neocons, the elite, and there are certain aspects where they're pushing back. And we can see there's a battle going on within the Trump administration with the elite, the deep state, those individuals who Trump has been brought in, and you can see it's a complete nightmare at this point. Now, McCain, it looks like he was pranked. Russia's notorious phone pranksters Vladimir Kuznetsov and Alexei Stolarov, known as Vovan and Lexus, well, they made a hoax phone call to U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and Republican Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, speaking about sanctions and cyber attacks. And we can see right now McCain, well, he went along with the whole thing. and the pair focused on anti-Russian sanctions, repeatedly asking the senator whether Trump was really planning to lift them. And McCain responded by assuring them that he was going to do everything possible to make sure the sanctions remain in place, and he didn't know what the Trump administration was going to do. And what's very interesting about this is that McCain really doesn't have the permission of the executive branch to go speak to individuals in Ukraine. Neither does Graham. But they were out there trying to make deals with lethal weapons, with sanctions. Actually, isn't this a violation of the Logan Act? Now, I know these were pranksters, so he was giving information, which he probably shouldn't have been given, to pranksters. So when we look at this situation, actually McCain, he should be in a lot of trouble right now. Now, out in Ukraine, we see Kiev is planning to occupy several localities in Donbass in the gray zone, and it looks like they're getting ready to push this major offensive in this area. And we can see that things are really heating up in this area, and we can see at this point that this is going to be the year of the offensive, according to McCain and Graham, where Poroshenko, at this point, he has no choice. He's taking orders and saying, listen, we need to go for it at this point. And it looks like this is exactly what they're doing. Now, the U.S. is about to escalate the fight against the Islamic State in both Iraq and Syria. The Pentagon, well, they're bringing in U.S. ground troops. They're looking at the situation. And Defense Secretary James Mattis confirmed that the U.S. as well as NATO as an alliance are preparing to escalate the fight in these two countries. Now, one thing, Syria, they need to coordinate with Syria and Russia, and it looks like at this point they're not going to do this. Syria has not invited the United States in there. They didn't say bring in your ground troops. And we see right now what they're about to do. They're about to push a war. Now, Trump might think that they're going to be going after the Islamic State, but the deep state, the neocons, they still have control over the armed forces. They are still operating covertly in these areas. And Iraq has an agreement with the United States where they can have up to like 4,500 permanent soldiers. Even though there's a lot more, the U.S. got around that with temporary soldiers where they can say, oh no, they're only going to be here for a temporary period of time. We just don't know what that time is. And that's why there's, 15,000 soldiers in Iraq right now. And they would have to come up with some type of other agreement, but most likely they'll just say, oh, these extra, 10,000 soldiers, they're temporary. But we can see right now, this is what they wanted from the beginning. They wanted ground troops in here. They wanted the air support. They wanted ground troops, and it looks like they're getting the ground troops. Now, hopefully, Trump will actually work with Putin, with Russia, with Syria to get rid of the Islamic State. And this is going to be a battle between the neocons, the deep state, and the Trump administration, because they're on two opposite ends. Because the deep state, they're still trying to get Assad out of power. They haven't given up. Now, Russia says it has bombed the Islamic State targets near Raqqa. Now, we know the United States, they were trying to get in there and get Raqqa. And we can see right now that Russia is already using their Tupolev 95 bombers. They've taken off from Russia and they've flown over Iran, and they just bombed the area and they hit the Islamic State target, their military camps and command points. So we can see that things are really heating up in the Middle East, and Trump is actually right. The entire Middle East, it is a complete mess. And you have to remember, he's looking at things completely different than everyone else. He's learning the truth. And actually, when he was during the press conference, he was saying, the reason why I say this is fake news is because I'm on the other end. I can see what's real, what's not real, and what you're reporting is fake. And what we've been seeing and what we've been talking about, we can see that this news that they're out there reporting makes no sense. I mean, if we go back to Crimea, where Russia stole it, well, they left out the part where the United States had a coup d'etat, spent $5 billion, had Victoria Nuland orchestrate the entire thing with Soros, and they took over a country. But they leave that whole part out because they don't want to report on that. See, the corporate media thinks if they just omit things, well, it's not lying to the people. And if we just spin the facts just a little bit, it's okay. And I think many of these reporters in these corporate media outlets, I really think they believe what they're talking about. And remember, the corporate media is receiving the information from the deep state. They're using that information, what they're receiving, just like the leaks. And again, most of this stuff that we've been looking at, there's no facts behind it. They're just out there saying stuff, using propaganda to convince people. And we can see that this is going to be a battle, and it's going to get worse as we move throughout this year. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.